And now, kindly, I will pass the mic to Bernd, who agreed to drive this discussion. And yeah, thank you, Bernd, and just floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and also thanks a lot to Michael for all the preparation for this panel. And I'm also excited what we will discuss. And I think it will depend a lot about what we discuss within the panel, what we discuss with all of you, and to make it as interactive as possible. The topic is science in a changing world, cooperation, solidarity, and the role of research infrastructures. And I think there are two ways of what they understand under the changing world. One, how the world changes by politics, by global developments, but also how our climate changes. And I think this is all impacted in our science, what we do, how we operate our infrastructures, and what is happening. So the session invites us to reflect on how research infrastructures contribute to a more connected, equitable, and innovative global research landscapes. On the other hand, we are in a time when science must respond to complex societal changes and to global politics. And we are, with our infrastructures, enablers of science, and always want to be platforms for openness, collaboration, and trust across borders. But if you look back a bit what has happened, and if I look just how we experienced this at BESI 2, for example, if you look on this attack of Russia against Ukraine, in the night we had and shut it down our German-Russian laboratory. We started a big project called Green Deal in Ukraine, where we work together with Poland. So it's a 3 countries project on the topic of energy and climate 3 years ago, but still the work is going on. I came from a table of the Falling Walls conference in Berlin, where we also usually the topic of the conference is break down the walls of science, so where there are scientific breakthroughs, but at this conference we also discuss a lot about topics like where I was on a panel on the Global South, how to cooperate there, but also on other topics. What we had an executive table, and I think you will also address this, talking about research security, also about in Europe research in the defense field, which we do partly or expected to do in our facilities. So, but before I go on with talking about this more, I think it's important to listen to our experts. First, we have a keynote speech by Frederick Skart. I don't know how to pronounce the second name. So it's about the topic will be unlocking the potential of research infrastructure ecosystems to tackle societal challenges. And Frederick is the project administrator at the Global Science Forum, and he also works on topics like mobilizing science in the time of crisis. So I think you're the perfect person to introduce this section. And then we have a panel, and I will introduce the panel members after your keynote. So Frederick, the floor is yours, and we are excited to listen to your inputs.
Thank you very much. And many thanks for the invitation for this meeting. This is really timely, I think. I want to thank Michael for organizing thanks a lot for the organization, and Marek also who helped me to meet a lot of very interesting people in different research infrastructure here in Krakow. Yesterday was fascinating. So for those of you who may not know the Global Science Forum of the OECD, it's a structure of the OECD which is dedicated to science policy. But it was created in the 90s really to support international collaboration on research infrastructures. And since then we have always had activities on research infrastructure policies. You can see here a few of our recent reports, and the latest one is on research infrastructure ecosystems. That's the one I'm going to speak about today. And we have a new activity on core facilities, which is why I was very interested to meet some of the core facilities here in Krakow. So why did we started to work on this topic? First, we have to realize that the field of research infrastructure has grown dramatically over the last 2 decades, 3 decades. It's gone much beyond what was in the 80s and 90s just research facility in physics or astronomy. They are now in all fields, they are of all shape and size, and they are present in most of the countries that do research. And they play an essential role in all fields of research, and they actually represent a significant investment of all research budget. So they have a very strong place in the research system. So they have this role, but there is a feeling that maybe they are not really always used at their full potential. At the same time, funders, policymakers, they expect increasingly more than what were the initial objective of the research infrastructure. It's not just to produce knowledge, but they are expected to have an impact on society, on economic development, etc., etc. There are a lot of collaborations between research infrastructure, but quite often they are limited to collaboration within the same domain or within the same type of research infrastructures. That does limit potentially their impact. International collaboration between research infrastructure is still limited, and I'm not talking about Europe, because Europe in the system is quite an exception. But as soon as you go beyond Europe, then you see that it's still difficult to collaborate. And then as soon as you go internationally, then yes, there are some large projects where people support each other to develop very large research infrastructure because they can't build that on their own. But then collaboration between research infrastructures, between continents, etc., that's still, fraught with challenges. But nevertheless, what we found is when they do exist, this collaboration, they can bring really added benefit. They can enhance the scope of the infrastructures, they can enhance their quality, the research quality of the science which is developed within the infrastructures. So these collaborations, they are extremely diverse, they can be very loose, they can be much more integrated. So in this report, what we meant by a research infrastructure ecosystem is a dynamic collaboration between research infrastructures which has been developed around a set of shared strategic objectives. So there is a vision between, within the collaboration, and that provides support or coordinates services and activities between the members, while the individual research infrastructure do maintain their independence. They remain responsible for their own governance, strategy, and businesses. But there is emphasis on active partnership. It's not just a loose network where people just get connected, but there is shared objective, shared activities between the infrastructure which are connected. So there are a lot of diverse type of research infrastructure ecosystems, and that's 3 examples. The first one is LIPS, okay? And here we anticipated that you would be an ASBL very soon. And that's a typical type of research infrastructure ecosystems where you have similar infrastructures that come together for a number of objectives. Then you have ecosystems which are different research infrastructures, but in the same domain. An example here is the German-Canadian Material Acceleration Center, so where you have 5 core institutions plus some additional partners which have a number of infrastructures, but they are brought together with a collaborative partnership to work on material sciences. But they are different type of research infrastructures. And finally, you may have ecosystems of different research infrastructures on completely different domains. Here, the example is GIANT, the Grenoble network, where you have international and national infrastructure which are partnering together so they can enhance the visibility of the region, basically, and they have some shared objectives together. No, you can also discriminate and identify these ecosystems according to their strategic objective. No, this is a series of main strategic objectives, but they are not mutually exclusive. So obviously one infrastructure ecosystem may have a primary objective, but some of the others may also be within their strategy. So first, you have those, with objective is to increase the competitiveness in a certain domain. For example, the epitaxi network in the national epitaxi facilities in the UK. Some are just to provide advocacy and exchange issues of common interest. Some are just to, not just, but they are really focused on sharing good practices and optimizing resources, and that's a bit the case of LEAPS. Also, it has also other objectives, or RadioNet, or etc. And quite often that goes in together with increasing access opportunities for a broader user community, going beyond your traditional users. And here you have a lot of infrastructure ecosystems which are developed around that main objective. Sometimes you have to go together because you have to collect data on a very large geographical area, potentially globally. So that's the case, for example, of the global ecosystem research infrastructure, GERI, etc., where basically you cannot get the data from one country or even one region. So you have to get the data from sensors or from equipments or from infrastructure all over the world to be able to provide the data required for the users, for your scientists. You may also have an ecosystem built around significant major objectives. It could be on health, or it can be on environment, etc. And that's, I think, Remade is a bit something like that, where you have a major objective which is around the circular economy. You want also potentially increase the attractiveness of an area. That was, I think, the case of the Grenoble ecosystem. And potentially also you want to develop and increase the efficiency of a major facility by connecting to other facilities. And for example, by bringing together a physics or whatever research infrastructure together with a very strong computing facility, so that it would increase the efficiency of the whole system. Now, usually when you ask, the promoters of the ecosystems, okay, why did you develop that ecosystem, and what is the benefit? They mention sort of a two-pronged approach. One, which is a benefit for the members, and the other part is a benefit for the users. So for the members, what you may have is increased visibility. I think LEAPS, that was really stated in their strategic objectives. So an increased influence, driving the agenda of the decision makers. It's also to coordinate, integrate the members' activities, and we have seen a lot of examples of coordinated action within LEAPS, where you have action on technology development. You start to think about risk assessment and risk mitigation. This is an increasing issue. Next slide, please. Where we talk about a changing international context. What do we see? Growing strategic competition, worldwide, and the return to power politics. Basically, countries flexing their muscles to achieve their national goal. An increasingly connection between national security and economic security. Before they were somewhat disconnected, except for restricted sort of field of defense fields, but nowadays it's much more than that. You have a pressure to integrate civil and military research and innovation. Before that, they tended to be quite separated, and now, because of the international context, people, countries want to make sure that their military system benefits from the discoveries done into the whole research system. It's increasingly difficult to separate fundamental research from applications. Research security and technology security and sovereignty are merging. So that, again, a more complex context to apprehend. And they are changing dynamic for international collaboration that we have seen, in recent years, and for open science. And with this motto, open as possible, as closed as necessary, sometimes there is an emphasis on the closed as necessary. And that's, is an issue, obviously. Next slide, please. So this new emphasis on research security. This is a topic we are working on right now at the Global Science Forum. And there are some general principles that are true for everybody. So what do you want to protect in terms of research? And that will depend. It will depend of the domain. It will depend of the infrastructure, or maybe the organization. It will depend on the country, etc., etc. But what do you want to protect? And typically, scientific and economic assets, national interest, defense capabilities, economic competitiveness. Then, from whom and from what should it be protected? Again, a lot of differences between countries, between domains, etc. It's not something if you are in social sciences where you may have sensitive data, or when you are in astronomy, obviously. But from what? So basically it's countering various forms of foreign interference, and that's can be extremely diverse. And then you have to keep in mind other factors. What do you have to take into account when you think about research security? And typically that's to underpin the value of the typical value of academic values. The fact that there is academic freedom, and science has to be open, and collaboration is very important. And you have to merge all these different pressure and context together. So next slide, please. Over that, you have the fact that you have a number of players that are involved, and a number of issues that have to be addressed. And it's not necessarily, you may have conflicting views according to different ministries or different entities. So a national government, for instance, will be very keen on preserving national security or economic competitiveness, but may not be as, for them, it may not be as important to support ethics or integrity in the science system, even though obviously it's important for the research ministries, but as a whole, it may not be the most priority. While, again, if you are a research performing organization, you will have a different perspective of what should be research security. So you have to combine all that and come up with something which makes sense, and which covers both the risk assessment and the risk mitigation elements. So final slide, please. So then, in that, what can research ecosystems do? So there are three main elements, I think, that you have to be aware. The first one is cybersecurity, and I know that, again, that covers different elements. It's just the sensitive nature of your data, but also the sensitive nature of your system that can be attacked, etc. And can be, the use can be diverted to different use that initially planned. You have the human aspect, basically all the staff that work, and quite often research infrastructure are international, so they have international staff that are very mobile. They have a lot of students coming in, etc., etc. And you have access to the facility of the users and access to the data. And the challenge for research infrastructure is quite often more important than for other type of research performing organizations and universities, because you are at the forefront of technological development. And you host vast amount of data, and quite often sensitive data. That's, traditional universities may not have. So you have to be aware that you potentially are more susceptible, more vulnerable to research security issues. So what can ecosystem do? Well, the first element is to talk between research infrastructure regarding the cybersecurity issues. There is a need to discuss and to be aware of potential weaknesses, and when there is an incident that happens, to inform the others that, what happened, how did it happen, what did you do to stop it, etc. So it doesn't happen the same way to your neighbor, to your colleague, right? So there's a lot of exchanges of good practices there that are essential. The second element is regarding the human aspect. it's always the weakest point. In research security, the human, you can have, you know, all your firewalls, all the technology, but human point is always a weak link. So there is a role for ecosystems for training and awareness regarding security issues. And the final one regarding access, etc., is to try to harmonize your security principles. Again, they will be different according to the disciplines, to the type of infrastructure, etc. So you can build trust and demonstrate to your decision makers or to your funders that yes, you are aware of the security threat and you have taken the necessary measures, you know, in collaboration with your colleagues so that you can minimize, you can mitigate the issues because you were aware of the problem. While still, and that's very important for all research infrastructure, remembering that you cannot stop international collaboration in science. That's critical for the development of science. And usually governments, they are aware of that. They know that you work under that principles of collaboration, that they don't want to stop that, but they want to, you know, they put additional pressure so that you're aware that there are increasing security issues and you have to take them into account. But you don't want to sacrifice the quality of science and your collaboration for potentially too restrictive approach to research security. So the right balance has to be achieved. Thank you very much.
Frederick, thank you so much. I think there's a lot of food for thoughts, and probably we could now start with a 1-hour discussion on all the questions and suggestions you raised. We need some seconds. Just take your seat here, yes. We need a few seconds to now also go on with the techniques. This I will use for maybe one observation I made. You said there are research infrastructures and ecosystems, and also LEAPS was mentioned as an ecosystem, which is a quite focused one. So it's centered around photons. I just want to mention that certainly photons are from the key for everything. Today morning, we experienced a very sunny morning, which improves the mood. So we saw the photons of the sun. If you compare it to a foggy morning, which is a bit dark, this is what we don't like to have, scattered photons and low beam quality. And with this, I will. I think I met one to go into the next speakers, but I would say at your really final sentence on the slide was international collaboration and science for the global good must not be sacrificed by a restrictive approach to research security. And I think this is from the keys, that because these are the both sides what we discuss further on. So I would like to go on with the speakers for the panel members, and there will be short introductory talks, only a few minutes. And the first one is by Amal Kasri, Chief of the Section Basic Science, Research, Innovation and Engineering, and from the UNESCO. So I think we will have now a very global perspective. And Amal, you are ready? Yes, we see you very nicely on the screen.
Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you very much. I think because I have a few minutes, better not to use the slides, just to give a quick introduction to what we do and how it is strongly linked to the topic of this meeting. And actually, I highly appreciate the keynote by Frederick, really very interesting, and resonates a lot with what we do at UNESCO when it comes to science, specifically basic sciences and engineering, the mandates that I am responsible for at UNESCO. So actually, I also appreciate very much, Frederick, what you said, that fundamental research cannot be separated from application. This is also very important. In my opinion, as a physicist at least, I think this is really the entry point to ensuring the ecosystem, because you need the fundamental science, you need the applied sciences, you need also the capacity of the scientists to ensure that ecosystem is achieved through these two. Let me give you a very quick introduction to what we do. First of all, at the natural sciences sector at UNESCO, we are always motivated by the challenges we face in the world: climate change, biodiversity loss, and all these major challenges facing us. And for that, we develop several programs to address these challenges and ensure that we can find solutions for. But I will, because of the time, I will focus on only one major thing we do that is very much linked to the introduction by Frederick, which is our remote access initiative. We started this initiative at UNESCO 3 years ago almost, and it's going really very successful now. Our motivation or our ultimate goal really is to have this ecosystem achieved via one specific thing, which is giving remote access to laboratory equipment, to the experimental laboratory equipment that can be quite sophisticated and not very easy. We started with Africa. Africa is a priority for UNESCO. We managed now to give access to some techniques, a specific technique in this case, which is very well needed for African scientists, single crystal X-ray diffractometers. We give access now to about 13 African countries. When I say access, means that we train the scientists and we train them on how to remotely access, of course, with our partners in different universities and different research institutes who are willing to share the facilities. And actually, we started this with a model. It's really very much under our open science recommendations of open science that were approved by UNESCO member states in 2021, and we are implementing it. It's not only about the open access as some people think. It's actually much more than this. It's about sharing the knowledge, sharing the infrastructure. And this is the impact of this on the long term for Africa, for example, and for other regions as well, of course, is to reduce the brain drain, to ensure that the scientists there are doing everything by their own hand. They own the data. They can develop solutions for the major challenges they face. And we started seeing actually the impact of that. Now we have 6 different techniques available for remote access, thanks to our partners and thanks to our member states' support also. I think this is really a very good example of how we can initiate a dynamic ecosystem. Another example in synchrotron facilities, which I think I will address this more further during the discussions. At UNESCO, as we also celebrate currently the International Decade of Sciences for Sustainable Development, where UNESCO is the lead agency, this is proclaimed also by the UNGA, approved by all member states. We consider the International Decade as a transformative era, because during these 10 years, we are on the 2nd year now, we really would like to see major changes happening on how science is being implemented, how it's being evaluated, how it's being measured. And also to enhance the scientific literacy, to make sure science is reaching everyone and valued by everyone, and I think this ecosystem idea is extremely important to ensure that we can implement the International Decade successfully, and also that we can have this transformative era. As I said, by the end of the 10 years, by 2033, we hope to see this achieved via different channels and in every part of the world. I think I will stop here, and I hope to answer or to address more issues during the discussion. Thank you very much.
Amal, thank you very much. And you also started with very good examples, and you started with climate change. But I think there are countries now who say there's no climate change, there's only severe weather, and it's one of the big countries. So we will have to discuss about this. So thanks a lot. And our next speaker for the panel and giving a brief statement, it's Agnieszka. I have to look up the second name. You will help me to pronounce it by yourself. So she's from Agnieszka is from the Warsaw School of Economy, She is a demographer, economist, so bringing also aspects about social science infrastructures. And so it's great to have you here to also have another perspective on infrastructures.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm a strange person here, but I think I bring this kind of interdisciplinary collaboration that we need, and we already started that quite intensively in Poland over the past year or so. So that's a new sort of step for us. I represent social sciences. My name is Agnieszka Chłoń-Dominczak, which is unpronounceable for non-Polish people. So it's fully understood. And I represent Survey on Health, Aging and Retirement in Europe, which is a European research infrastructure consortium. So we are part of the ERIC world. But also within what we do in Poland, I'm the country team leader for SHARE in Poland. I'm also the member of the management board of the SHARE ERIC, but we are also involved in other social research infrastructures that includes generations and gender survey, and also new infrastructure which is being developed that we plan to access, which is growing up in digital Europe. What we do, we survey people. So it's slightly different from what you do. So we actually approach people. In the case of SHARE, as you can imagine, that these are people 50 plus, all across Europe. Generations and Gender Survey covers people from age 16 until 65, and the guide is planning to cover children and youth. So in a way, we cover all generations. There is also another social survey, which is a part of the ERIC world, which is the European Social Survey. What is SHARE? SHARE is a research infrastructure to study effects of health, social, economic and environmental policies over the life course of European citizens and also beyond. It is a unique observatory because, we observe people in time, but also we observe people in different circumstances related to megatrends. Climate change was one of the trends that was mentioned. I'm a demographer, so I cannot not refer to the issue of population aging, demographic change, which is also a huge issue for our societies. But also reaction to policies, events, reforms, crises, such as, for example, COVID pandemic, on which I will tell a little more later on. So with our research, with our findings, we strive to improve people's quality of life as we provide high quality research on their health, on their socioeconomic conditions and living situations. And we provide evidence to policymakers that help to shape social policies, health policies, labor market policies, retirement policies, and so on. SHARE was actually the first ERIC established in 2011. So we were quite an experiment, which means that we right now learned from the others, they learned from our mistakes, and that's how the ball is rolling. We started it in 2004, so we already, we have more than 20 years of data collection experience. We do our survey biannually, and as I have said, our population is 50 plus people. Basically, the survey is face-to-face. We are currently finalizing wave 10 of our survey. That means that our interviewers visited households of our respondents 10 times or less, depending on when country joined the survey. We also did additional 2 waves of telephone interviews, and that was in 2020 and 2021 during the COVID pandemic. And this was, we discussed on how infrastructures can react to crisis, to different developments. That was our very first reaction. And we needed to stop fieldwork basically when everybody was closed in their homes, and we couldn't really have our interviewers going from household to household asking people how they feel. So we decided that we will do that on the telephone, having access to our panel, to our respondents. That was a huge challenge, if you can imagine. All of a sudden, we needed to design the questionnaire, which is our tool. This is our instrument. We needed to prepare the new telephone interview version because it's different from the perspective of software, how you apply things and so on. We needed to train our interviewers that were used to go from home to home, not exactly telephone people. And we did it. And we did it twice. So in that way, we collected a lot of data that then was used to understand what are the consequences of closures? What are the consequences of stringency measures that were taken? Because it's not only that people fell ill, that they had COVID, but also because they were closed, because they didn't have access to their social networks, because they were lonely. There were a lot of problems related to health, related to depression. But also, for example, people developed their digital skills. That was also something that we found out during our surveys. That's how we react to how an infrastructure, which is a social infrastructure, can react. On what is SHARE? We are currently doing our survey in 28 countries. That includes all the European member states without Ireland, who has a sister study, so we can compare to each other, but also we have Israel. We have our infrastructure users from 81 countries at the moment. We had more than 616,000 interviews during the first 9 waves of data collection. We have more than 4,000 publications that we have traced using SHARE data. We have more than 20,000 users, or actually close to 22,000 users from all over the world. We have around 140,000 respondents in 27 countries. There is about 190 people working in countries and in the SHARE Central covering SHARE. What makes our research infrastructure important? So we have ex-ante harmonized microdata. That means that we use the same questionnaire all over the 27 countries that are participating in the survey in all different language forms, which we can imagine is also a challenge how to do that. We have support of good people in the service from Center Data, who's in Holland, who's in the Netherlands, who actually support us in doing that in a proper manner. We provide our data for all scientific users. They have to register and they have to be scientific users. So we don't provide our data to people who represent industries, who represent public governments, with some exceptions of analysts working there. We share the SHARE data as soon as possible to the entire scientific community. We provide our data free of charge. Only the individual registration is required. The data can be used only for scientific research. And we are covered by the European Union national data protection laws and the SHARE conditions of use. And our users have to agree on that. We also try to follow innovations in our field. So for example, an innovation which maybe is not a huge one but important is we strive ways to link our data with administrative data in some countries to have a more focus on facts which are available through the source of data. We have innovations related to specific areas, such as Harmonized Cognition Assessment Protocol, which is related to the growing incidence of dementia all over the world. I have mentioned the COVID pandemic. We also struggle. After COVID, we have a problem that a lot of people don't respond to don't want to invite our interviewers. So when interviewers come, they actually refuse to participate in a survey, and we have to refresh our data, our respondents' poll because we need younger people. So we need people around 50 to also respond to our questionnaires. So we are right now discussing and experimenting on using other ways of collecting data, such as internet interviews. However, we need face-to-face contacts because we do some parts of like physical assessment, including the dynamometers. So we use the grip strength measure. We ask our respondents to draw some pictures to identify early risks of dementia. So this is our world of social infrastructures. And we believe that it is important that we understand that we need each other, that we need, of course, natural sciences, physics, chemistry, all the huge observatories, but we also need to understand how people feel, how people react, how people behave in different circumstances, how they react to the climate change. And this is also one of the projects that we have across all social infrastructures to look at the social aspects of the green transition. And in that kind of a collaboration, I believe that we are able to actually provide this kind of message to the policymakers and to understand everything. We are also not cheap. So I remember that's the last sentence I wanted to make once I went to our Ministry of Science, because, the country surveys, the national data collection is financed from the national sources. The central provides coordination related to the tools, some of the trainings and organization. So but the main effort is really within the countries. So we said that we need the data collection, and if we would like to cover, I don't remember, I think it was 4 waves of the data collection. This gentleman from the Ministry of Science looked at me and he said, it's as much as a good telescope costs. And I said, yes, but we need this kind of observations as well. Thank you very much.
Agnieszka, thank you so much, and I think this was really important contribution. And I was at the end I was surprised by that it costs enough as much as the telescope. But what we experience all is, and this is what you mentioned, harmonized data. You have countries, different languages, and so on. I can imagine that this harmonized data are extremely difficult. On the other hand, also you want to connect it to administrative data, and this is what we are facing in our facilities already. To bring administration and science together is also a big issue. And maybe I have one question for you, but maybe for the lunch break afterwards, because there's always the question, what is the happiest country in the world? And this is done by people, probably by the social scientists, demographers who ask the question, and Finland always wins. And I'm surprised why, if they are never called in the dark period of the year, or how Finland manages to be the happiest country in the world. Okay, this brings me to the next panel member, but maybe you already take the seat here in the panel. So now I think we only need some short speeches, because the next 2 are very well known in our LEAPS community. So it will be Andrea Lausi from Sesame. Andrea, you're the scientific, so coming in my bag. In my bag. So I think it's one of the, I would say, most exciting synchrotrons in the world, but probably one of the most difficult to run synchrotrons in the world. And your background is you set up already early beamlines at Elettra, so you're full in our community. Yeah. Andrea.
Yeah, thank you. So I will be very short. No slides, please. There is no time. So an updating message for everybody who is not really familiar with Sesame. Sesame is not BESI 1. This is the first. This is the first new. It has been for a certain amount of time an extremely useful tool, BESI 1, in order to get there. But it has been substituted from the very beginning with a new machine. So what to say about Sesame? It's the only large-size research infrastructure in the Middle East. It is a joint venture of scientists and governments of the region, which comprises members which do not normally sit around the same table. So we have Israel and Iran, Palestine and Pakistan, and Cyprus and Turkey, and Egypt and Jordan. So these are the 8 present members of. So it is, as you can imagine, a quite exceptional set of members. And it is working. It is working now. It is working well. It has a increasing number of users. So we have roughly 150 proposals each semester, which with 5 beamlines is a fairly good number. And it is increasing the number of beamlines. So at the beginning of December, we will inaugurate the 6th beamline, which is attached to the same undulator as the HESEB beamline, the Helmholtz Sesame beamline. To the same undulator, we will attach also the Turkish beamline, the TEXPES, Turkish photoemission spectroscopy beamline. This is an important milestone because this is the first beamline built by one of our members. So it is not a Sesame beamline, it is a Turkish beamline in Sesame. This is a change of business model that it's quite really important. And it is also the first beamline built in the Middle East. So this is again one first thing very important. What to say more? We have challenges, obvious, as you can imagine, in this region and in this period in particular. So look at it. The flight plan has been quite shaky so far. So it took a lot of years to be built, the machine. The funding was never enough, so you could always, in construction time, when your funding is not arriving, you can always delay it, and you build next year what was supposed to be built. And so it took a fairly large amount of years to be built. It entered into operation in 2018, so the first users started to come in 2018. 2019, we turned on the one of the essential helps that we got from Europe, which is the solar panel plant, which allows us to work. Without the solar panel plant, there would be no Sesame, because the only cost of the energy would be much more than our entire budget, so it would be impossible. So the fact that we have this solar power plant and reducing the cost of the energy practically to zero allows us to survive. And so in 2019 we turned it on, so we could use the entire year for beam time. And in 2020, myself and COVID arrived practically at the same time. So I don't know what was worst, but the performance went down, obviously. And then it started recovering in 2021, 22-ish. Beginning of 23rd, I was starting going around and doing some road shows in members and non-members countries in order to increase the visibility. And then October 23rd arrived as a second hit. So it's taking off, and then so it's going. In any case, we have at the moment 160 practically papers published. The number is not excessive, I must say, but I have an explanation for that. And the quality is good. So the average impact factor is above 5, and 20% of the papers have an impact factor above 7, which is our numbers of a comforting numbers, of a mature facility, if you want. So it means that the ecosystem in which we are embedded is healthy from the scientific point of view, but there are we could have more papers published. The problem is that most of our users are new to the techniques, so they need the help of the beamline scientist to analyze the data in many cases, and we don't have enough beamline scientists, and we don't have enough beamline scientists because we don't have enough funding, and so it's a circle which goes on, and we hope that with further projects and further convincement, the only way that I see is to increase the number of members, which in this moment is particularly complicated, as you can imagine. Yeah. So, but this is all. The Sesame is there. It's working well, and yeah, we are proud to be members of LEAPS. On this, we will return, I think.
Andrea, thanks a lot. So that's the second take-home message. Sesame is not BESI 1, and I'm not the director of HasiLab. So okay, but that's important, and we go there. And certainly, as having a chair in photovoltaics, I love this sentence. Without photovoltaics, you would have no beams at Sesame. But we will come to, I think, very important points you raised later on. Last but not least, so Katharina from ALBA. I think you're director of ALBA since 2012. Yes, I read it. But the most important part, you have been many years in our scientific advisory council.
Yes, in fact. Well, I had a few slides, but I think I can just speak to make it also shorter. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here in this panel in front of my LEAPS friends. ALBA started as a national facility. It was like the dream of a visionary group. Almost 20 years ago it started. And now since 2012 we are operating and growing and increasing our services, our users. If I look at the numbers of our users, access users in 2012, it was 350. Last year it was 10 times more, 3,500. With a increasing also diversity of user access, remote users, industrial, external partners, students. So it's also the increase of the services which has gone on during this decade of operation, and we are now as most of the facilities represented in LEAPS, of the third generation facilities, moving towards the fourth generation, and this is also a result of the collaboration within Europe, mainly of our people, because at the end it's the people who make the difference. And the fact that we are able now to do this upgrade is also thanks to the collaboration with the facilities which are represented here. And what is also very the evolution of these services go with the evolution of the impact that we do in the society. Of course, there are our users come mainly from the academy, a lot of fundamental research, but then applied research, and then innovation and industrial users. And there was a very interesting study we did last year on the impact of the papers which are obtained through from the academic users, the impact on innovation. This is something that I think in LEAPS we should do the same as a whole. It was done by a group of economists in Milan. We had at the moment like 3,000 papers based on the open access, so they were open, and they found out that 4,500 patents were mentioning these papers. And this was a huge number. Also considering that the impact on the patent comes years after the paper. Some of them were referring to papers done in the first years of operation. So if we do something like that for LIPS, where there are facilities which have been running for decades, this number will explode. And I think this is a very important number for our politicians, for those who have the funding for our facilities, because it's how the science, fundamental science, and the science which is done by our users, not only fundamental, also applied, but how this reverts really in innovation and in impact on the world, on the society. And I want also to mention that our users, when ALBA started, there were a few hundred users in Spain of the synchrotron facilities. In this moment in our database, we have like 10,000 users. And of these, 50% are from outside Spain. And if I look at the proposals that we receive, we have like 40% of our of the proposals we receive are from outside Spain, 35% are Europe, but 5% also from the rest of the world. And this is something also which gives us we know, but the statistics really push the number, how much we collaborate with the rest of the world, with Asia, with America, with Africa, and of course with the Middle East, and Sesame is the best example of all of this. So what I want also to mention, and this goes in the direction of what we are discussing here, is that of course we are in a world where there are global challenges, there are global threats. So we need global solutions. So the fact of the collaboration is essential for all of us. And I think during the rest of the roundtable, we will hear more about this. Thanks.
Katerina, thank you so much. And I think it's also important that you said, how do we bring science into impact and how we can show this? Because this is sometimes very difficult, how to explain society what the impact is and how to measure it. But now going in this round of discussions, I think there were so many aspects addressed, and I would like to make a kind of a short first round of questions to all 5 of you. And I just want to ask Amal, is she still online, and can we put her on the screen? Because yes, great. So we see you. So you're sitting. So I have to move a bit. So the question is a bit that we found out that around the world, governments are pursuing policies aimed at resilience, competition, sovereignty, and economic growth. At the same time, values such as solidarity, fairness, and cooperation for the common good remain central to science and global collaboration, but partly they are under pressure. And if you look on those directions, strategic national, ambitious, and shared human values may coexist, but this all can create tensions. And what is, from your perspective, do you see these objectives as able to coexist, or is there this inherent tension which is hard to resolve? And maybe I would start, because you mentioned it already with Andrea, in the context of Sesame, because you are fighting with this tension, how to finance, how to work together in, let's say, all those political and geopolitical challenges what we have.
Yes, okay. Now, surely we are quite accustomed to tensions, yes. But I would say that it's practically inherent, it's built in the concept of research infrastructure, which transform competition into collaboration. Otherwise, you don't have a research infrastructure. So from the very beginning, those who set up Sesame accepted this idea that collaboration was at the fundamental of the of what is happening. So you still see, even in these difficult days, but delegates from all members gathering at the council and discussing openly what has to be done at the facility. It is a shared facility, and yes, so it is still going on, and it is. I think this is because of the nature of research infrastructure. It is one of the things that make research infrastructure, the fact that you have to collaborate in order to do that.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I would like to ask Amal next. You mentioned, and I think it's a bit closely related, the role of research infrastructures, their access to it via UNESCO. You explained it also on the example with Africa. Maybe you could elaborate a bit what has changed, in your opinion, in the use of research infrastructures in geopolitics, and what are, let's say, the home messages from your side, how we can fostering trust, cooperation in our global society by research infrastructures, and what are the challenges?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much. First of all, I'm really sorry that I'm not with you physically, but we just finished our general conference, so I apologize for that. But really a pleasure to be with you today, and the topic is really timely and very important. I actually we see science as that it should be actually a unifying language. So there shouldn't be a conflict between the global solidarity and the national priorities. We just need to know how to achieve the balance. And we believe that research infrastructure can provide a mechanism to achieve this balance, basically. By putting together the scientists, the institutes, the countries, the governments. It is challenging, of course, because each country can have different priorities and also a different level of infrastructure. And as Andrea mentioned, Sesame is one of the really brilliant examples for bringing together all these countries that have conflicts and different, even different level of infrastructure, but they come together to find ways to work together and to empower their scientists and to strengthen the capacity of their scientists. So it is possible. Yes, lots of challenges, of course. What has changed, to answer your question directly, what was changing or what happened after trying to do this? We see that, first of all, it is this freedom that the scientists feel when they know that they have the facilities available for them. So we, by facilitating this kind of remote access, there are partners in the developing world or in the countries that even actually we are trying to do this within even African countries, not to be not only dependent on countries in Europe or in USA, but actually even within themselves, because some countries have some facilities and some not. One example is that facilities in South Africa is now being shared now in countries like Benin and others. So we have really to find ways. It's really very possible, but it needs a lot of effort, of course. So what we have seen changing is that the scientists feel more trust because they know that they have the freedom to do what they want because the facilities can be available when they want to do a certain level of innovation or to achieve something new. This is a huge difference because the freedom of scientists starts from having the facilities, from having the infrastructure. If there are many brilliant scientists in Africa, for example, but if they feel constrained and restricted because they cannot do what they want, then it is really a huge problem. So we started to see this difference. We start to feel it from the scientists. We run surveys from time to time to monitor the impact and to see how this kind of remote access improving the capacities, and we see that it's slow, of course, but it is happening. So this is the first thing that I really wanted to point out, that freedom of scientists, by giving them access and infrastructure at any time, really helps a lot in enhancing the trust in science. The challenge is that we need to find a mechanism that can ensure the sustainability of such mechanism, because of course now we are dependent on partners who are kindly sharing their facilities for certain time of hours, but we need to make sure that this can continue, because of course we understand that this is subject to currently available resources that can diminish at some time, available to funds also, of course, that can vary, and especially now in the current geopolitical situation. So this is a major challenge for us that we are trying to find solutions for by working directly with the governments, trying to encourage them to develop national policies to ensure that this kind of remote access can continue and can grow. Another way to try to overcome this challenge is by promoting centralized facilities. Central facilities can help a lot in this, and we are really working now with African member states trying to find or to develop ways to do this central facilities in different regions. And I'm sure Andrea at some point can also explain about our efforts now to promote the collaboration between African member states and the SESAMI by having a common or joint beamline, because also some beamlines can be remotely accessed. So there are ways, there are solutions, but and again I repeat, there is no conflict between national priorities and the global solidarities. We just need all of us to work together to how to achieve this balance. Thank you.
Amal, thank you. I think the last statement was we need to all work together. If I look a bit on Katerina, so it was also, Amal also said that the freedom of science needs access to infrastructures. On the other hand, you also talked about impact, so your users are from around the world, as you showed in your map. Is it also, are we sure that this is recognized as a good, that the impact what we give globally is this really under some debate? Because I'm sometimes involved in discussions where people say, oh, why do you give all the beam time to everyone? It's paid by our taxpayers and so on. So maybe you could discuss about this topic a bit.
Yes, I think this is an interesting point, because this, I would say, comment comes often, especially if there are I mean, it's very well accepted that people from Europe move around Europe, and this is already something that we have obtained. And I think the fact that we are within LIBS helps also in showing that this is for sure an added value. Justifying that we have users from China is more difficult, okay? But I think we can really explain that this is a two-way collaboration, and we need to do that. As I said before, we need the global solutions. And we need that because the threat is so big. These days there is the COP30 in Belém, where most countries are there, but there is one big country who has not sent the federal representative because climate change is not an issue. And we need to fight against this, and we can do that only opening ourselves to the whole world. And if there is, when I talk about the ALBA, I said 5% come from outside Europe. It's a small number at the end that we are offering. And I know that the people from, users from Spain go to these countries, to go to Japan, go to US, and so there is this communication, which is essential that we keep the communication. Opening our doors to all the users of the world. And when we had to close some of our doors towards some of our users like it was for Russia. This is something that in Europe many of us did also because of decisions from our governments. Even if completely understanding the problem and the reason, is very difficult to close to a certain community with whom you were working together the day before, and you say now these people that you know that they are not involved in the whatever is the problem, you have to close that. That is very painful, and I think on the long term that does not pay off. Of course, finding the balance where to stop and against whom is complicated. There were a lot of discussions also in the last during the last months, especially if we should close also doors to Israel, and there are people who do not want to collaborate with some communities. My point is that we should really continue to be open if we want to solve. And we have to raise our voice whenever possible to keep this openness of science.
Thanks a lot. And if you look on this question about the openness, and I think this brings immediately also the question of the data. And I would like to ask there, Agnieszka, because that's a topic, how to be open, how to work together, but how do you do this in the social sciences? You said that it's already getting more complicated to get the interviews, to the people interviewed. On the other hand, you have certainly data which are, I would say, critical in many ways. So there, I would say there's also a lot of tension how you use your data in, they could be interesting for security issues, they could be important for, let's say, elections, everything. So I think your data probably have a high value, and maybe people will say, why should we make them open? Why should we share them?
Yes, it is indeed a challenge and an issue on various aspects. So I would say that starting from the beginning, I mean, we have, as I have said, we have a harmonized questionnaire that is, of course, evolving in time. So we collect different kinds of data, including also the life histories data that we did in Wave 3 and Wave 7. All the data is collected. All the data is available, as I have mentioned, through the ShareEric website. For all the waves that we have. So this is, the data release is available to everybody, and it covers all countries, and it is available to every people in every country, the scientists and researchers, of course. So it's not limited only to, I mean, our data is, it's not that we have restrictions because of time, access to the equipment. So this is the beauty of the social science data, that it is open. Of course, and there's a wealth of sister surveys all around the world. So we have, of course, HRS survey in the United States that was, let's say, the founding idea to go to develop surveys in other countries. We have surveys in China, in India. So there are some comparabilities that are also used to do this research. And I think that in social sciences, all people agree that it is important to really cover as many countries as possible, because that gives us a lot of comparative knowledge.
Sorry, interrupt you for one question, because you said you have data lying in the US. Is it sure that you will have access to the data?
No, I mean, our data is within ShareEric, okay. So it is available in Europe. There's another survey in the US which is conducted. Unfortunately, the issues related to aging and to dementia are still understood as important. So we actually hope even to get some funding from the National Institute of Aging in the US to develop our cognition survey in Europe, but that's keeping fingers crossed, because that's not an easy thing these days, especially. What we struggled for, I mean, Share started as a survey of 6 countries, and as I have mentioned, right now we cover 27. So as you can imagine, there are challenges related to it. First, how to coordinate between the 27 countries. I'm not mentioning the funding. This is another story which is completely different. And we actually do that by, we have coordination meetings there are 2 meetings per year, one in the springtime, one in the autumn. So one is related to the preparation of the next wave, and the other one is related to sort of summary of the wave that is more or less completed. During those, we have, of course, our central coordination, so all the issues related to questionnaire development, to data collection, data cleaning, development of additional variables that are calculated based on the data that we collect. This is all done within the Share Central. With the country teams, we discuss the tools. We also do the training of the agencies that do the surveys. So this is also an additional activity that is done. So we train the trainers, and then the trainers train the agencies and the interviewers. Having 27 countries means that it becomes more and more of a challenge to really meet together, to discuss, even to know each other. But we do all that we can to sort of have this kind of regular meetings, regular exchanges, involvement in various kinds of projects. Because when we think about financing, it's not only that we have financing for our data collection, but we are also researchers. So we want to use our data to actually do some research, do analysis. And this usually requires additional also funding, because it's not usually within the funding that we have for the data collection. So that means that we compete. We compete also with you as research infrastructures in the European project. So this is the infra projects that are called by the Commission that we also participate in. We also do the projects that are related to specific aspects, like the societal aspects of the green transition. We applied for funding for the projects related to intergenerational fairness, and this gives us a leverage to also do the research. There's also a lot of discussion and a lot of issues related to capacity building. As you can imagine, if you have research teams and in the infrastructure from 27 countries, these are people that have completely different experience preparing panel data, using panel data, but coming from different fields. But also, frankly speaking, I mean, sometimes it's also a lot of capacity building within the research teams and within infrastructure, so that our colleagues from all the countries can use the data as efficiently as possible. So we also organize share user conferences, methodological workshops. We try to train people not only from the infrastructure, but also other users to use the data in the efficient way and in the proper way as well. Because as you can imagine, again, people, I mean, the data is available, people download the data, then they try to use it, and sometimes they use it, I would say, in a way that can astonish us, let's say. And then we see that it's really important that we provide information how you can use the data, how certain variables can be used, what are the risks and of using certain data that we know that sometimes requires additional attention. There are weights. I mean, if you want to have some findings that you apply to the entire population, then you need to use weights. And that's not the knowledge that is commonly shared with all the researchers that use our data. So this is something that is also important. We also had discussion about Israel, for example. As you've heard, we have Israel in our group, and Israel is doing shared data. So the question was also how to do that. And we also decided, I mean, Israel stays because, I mean, they fund it. And they are part of our data protection agreement. We have a data protection agreement that covers 27 countries. It took us 2 years to actually sign it by everybody. We had a lot of discussion with Israel because of the way the data ownership is seen in Israel. we finally had it, but I mean, I must say that there was a lot of naming and shaming, like, you know, almost everybody signed the data protection agreement. Could you please do that as well? Because we need that to have our next wave going on. There's a lot of discussion of how we use the data, because, I mean, if you can imagine, I mean, we have 180,000 respondents, but in an individual country that can vary from 2,000 to 20,000. So that means that if we have small number of respondents, there is a lot of risk related to what kind of data we reveal, what kind of data we don't reveal. So for example, on the geographic and the spatial distribution, we provide data at the national level, but we have also NUTS information. To what extent we can go down, how we can connect this data to other geographical data which is available all around the world, like, for example, the air quality and other stuff. So that's a lot of discussion that we have internally. Where is this border? We have another discussion which is currently going on.
Probably, I think we have to go on a bit.
I'll just tell one thing.
One thing, it's
and this is how we can use large language models in using social data, because we have data on individual people, on real respondents, and then how to translate it to agent-based modeling, how we can develop our agents using the real data, how to assess the risks. So these are the discussions that we have. They are not finished, so I can't provide answers, but I think there's a lot of common questions that we share across different disciplines.
I fully agree. I think these are all very, very important points, and also these discussions, what you are facing, are we facing also. I had also a discussion 2 days ago in the evening with a friend from Israel who was doing a lot in science diplomacy, who was also proud to publish together with people from Palestine. And yeah, we have experienced big changes in the world. Before, Frederick, you have to summarize. I also want to mention, after this first round and after Frederick, I will also open the floor to you, so you can already think about questions, remarks, aspects which are important in this role. And then after we have included the audience, we will go to a second round of questions. Frederick, you showed in your presentation that we have the research infrastructures, we have certainly the ecosystems. And now we have talked about different ecosystems from UNESCO placed LEAPS. We are certainly one of those ecosystems, but also in the social sciences. And if you look in this world of tension, you also had one slide where there were many connections and saying, yeah, we have to connect it. What is your take home after your input presentation, the discussion, what we have now? Could you reflect on this tension, on solutions or challenges to this?
So I would start by saying that science is a very long-term enterprise and usually outlasts political decisions or national decisions that come and go with various responsible. So you have to take a long-term view. Nevertheless, there are some general trends that will certainly continue to develop for many years, and these issues of national interest, sovereignty, etc., that's going to last for many years, but it's only a challenge if you don't consider it properly, because on the other side, everybody agrees that science is made with collaboration. It's a necessary thing, and it's necessary for national interest. Right? You cannot just do science within your own country and not have your scientists exchanging, outside. So, in the national interest, in defending technology development, etc., collaboration remains necessary. Except that there is a higher level of sensitivity to this collaboration. And my takeaway is just you have to be aware and proactive on that element. If you can demonstrate to your funders and to your decision makers that yes, you're aware, you're not naive regarding these elements, and you take that into account in your working processes, in your security, you have done a risk assessment of the potential risk for your infrastructure or your organization, etc. And again, it will be very different according to fields, etc., etc. Then you can continue, and they will probably support your collaborations. I mean, that's the feedback we got from most countries that we are working with on research security. They are all saying, yes, we have issues, we have challenges, there are higher security issues that we have to take into account, but we don't want to stop international collaboration on science. And there are other opportunities to develop. For example, ASEAN, in recent years, has been pushing for increased collaboration on research infrastructures within ASEAN countries. It's fairly new, right? But they have developed research infrastructures, and they are pushing, within ASEAN countries for more collaboration. So, and Japan and Korea are much more open now to international collaboration than they were maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So, sometimes, opportunity close, but other opportunities open. And as long as you are aware of the sensitivity of the topic and that your government want to make sure that their issues are the challenges are taken into account properly, then you're on the fine. You can still have a lot of opportunities for international collaboration.
Thanks a lot. And now I'm looking in the audience. I don't know if there are also questions possible online. Do you have comments to the discussion? Questions to one of the speakers? Next time we have to do planted questions. I learned it in one. Okay, Olaf.
Do I have a microphone? You can get this one. No. I would have a question to Amal. I mean, we've learned about this changing context on putting more focus on technological sovereignty, shifting of interest from basic or fundamental science to more applied and innovation. To what extent is this affecting your work, and what are your strategies to cope with it?
Thank you very much. Actually, enhancing sovereignty in science, it should not affect our work. It's actually one of our aims. So we want to help the member states to have national policies, national strategies, and national capacities in fields of science. So this is really one of our ultimate goals. And as I said in the beginning, it does not conflict with global solidarity, and it does not conflict also with the sharing, with the concept of sharing. In fact, the concept of sharing and the recommendations of open science can ensure, or they must ensure, they are designed to ensure that the national policies and the strategies are stronger. Because when they are stronger, the scientists will have the ability and the capability to develop and to work also with the others. So it is really, it's one way. It's a mutual benefit between what the countries needs and what the world needs. So I don't see a conflict in that. I don't see it as a challenge for us to cope with. I see it as actually a good thing to help us develop more and more our policies and our strategies and our work with member states. I think this was the question, right? Or there was a second part of the question. Excuse me, if you can repeat it.
Olaf, you're happy with the answer?
I'm happy with the answer.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So thank you. I think the question was very well, and the answer was very well received. I'm looking. Oh, now it's going up. We take Britta first, and then. Okay. We take both questions.
Doesn't matter. Thank you very much. I was interested because, Frédéric, you pointed out that science has a long breath and goes over politics decisions. But now we are, of course, facing a time where our global changes influence a lot. And Andrea made a very nice case how it goes in case of his facility. But we see many, many impacts. So are we using the... And we see, I mean, we heard the example of Light for Ukraine activities and other activities that we take. Do you have any recommendations to us? Are we doing the right things? Are there chances that we miss? Is there anything that, from your perspective, research infrastructure networks, national facility mainly, could do?
So I think, I mean, I don't want to provide an evaluation as not here, but I think you're doing the right thing, which is you have much more chance to address this additional pressure collectively. It would be extremely hard, I think, for single research infrastructures, particularly when they are small or medium size, to address the complexity of these challenges. Regularly, just cybersecurity in itself, that is very challenging for many infrastructures that collect and hold and processes a lot of data, have their own architecture, etc., etc. They require support, and it's only by networking and sharing information between research infrastructure that you can address many of these new challenges. It's the same thing for international collaboration. There are some obstacles, but if you have a weight, if you have an influence by getting together, then you can usually overcome some of these challenges. Not always. There will be always time and conflict, but even if you look at the current U.S. policy, let's be open on that. Yes, there are some domains where the current policies is a challenge because, for example, it's a challenge to the supporting a number of data and database that's used to provide data internationally. But at the same time, if you look at the recent working paper from the U.S. government, they still do support very strongly support the development of their national research infrastructure. And the people who manage the research infrastructure, they know that they have to collaborate. Right? So they will go around to make sure that they maintain, in terms of national interest, that they maintain this collaboration because it's critical to be at the top level. So I think you're doing what is right, which is you share information, good practices, and by getting together, you have an increased influence on the decision maker because you can bring them back your general concerns and say, okay, we have a challenge here, we have to overcome, and we need support, or this is the type of solutions that we propose we could overcome. Are you fine with that?
Yes, thanks a lot, and we go to the next question.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, when we are discussing the concept of EOSC, European Open Science Cloud, we always say, okay, so the data should be as open as possible and as closed as necessary. Yes. So it means that we are protecting the intellectual property, and to be honest, the access to technologies is the name of the game if we are talking about competitiveness. Yes. So, and the most developed countries have new technologies. So the gap is growing between the less developed parts in the world and the most developed parts in the world. So I believe that one time we will take control on the fusion, but the question is, will the energy of the fusion, there will be a time when there will be a bulb in a dry part of Africa taking the energy from the fusion. So, and this is one observation that the question, if my dream that this fusion will be accessible for the poor countries in the poor regions, and this is the first part. And the second part of my question is, who should follow who? Is it like this? Because I have this feeling that sometimes this is like the government, because if we will just observe this gap that it is growing, we know from the scientific perspective that it will bring problems sooner or later globally. We are already observing this. So now, should it be like this, that these are governments following science, or don't we observe the phenomenon that in fact this is science following governments? So they are telling us what they need, and this is not we who are telling them what is needed for peace, solidarity, common good, and the future of this planet. Yes.
That's, I think, a big question. Who wants takes the lead to give the first quick answer? Oh yes, Amal.
Well, I didn't volunteer, but I can. I think, as I said, it's really not easy sometimes, really, to understand the difference between what the countries needs and how. And I think there is a confusion sometimes. But as I said, I repeat again that I don't see any conflict between what scientists want to do, what countries want to do, what the ecosystem can be established. It's all, it's like a puzzle, and all these elements must come together in order to achieve this big picture. So I think I can summarize just a very quick answer in that, but maybe the colleagues in the panel can also add to this.
Okay, who wants to step in and says, so it was a question, which direction? How in German we say, is it? I think it's a question of the dog with the tail.
I can say something, not answer to your question, which is a difficult question, but I think we are all there. I mean, there is not one or the other. There is a feedback, and what we need to do is to give this feedback to the policymakers, to those who, of course, we inside LIPS we are different countries, facilities reporting to the country government, who are those who put the funding. So, for sure, we are linked to the strategy of each country. But we are inside Europe, and we all talk about the Draghi and the Letta report, but is something that we are really, or at least the policymakers are taking into account seriously, because we need, in Europe, if we talk about the collaboration, we need to be sure that inside Europe this collaboration really exists. When we talk about those who are here, we are collaborating, of course. But there are things that are not so easy to share openly, and we know that. And there are things that we don't dare to treat. I mean, the collaboration with China, for example, is something that within LIPS we have never really discussed. And we all know that for our upgrades, storage rings, we need permanent magnets. And we know that China would be the perfect partner for that. But this creates problems which are not the same in Spain that in Germany or in Poland or UK. So all these barriers that exist even within this wonderful group where we openly speak of many things, there are still things that we don't treat really. And I think the strength of LIPS should be also explained more and more to our national governments. Because we speak with the European Commission, but the European Commission is not putting money inside LIPS. I mean, we are talking yesterday about having a call with 35 million to be shared with LIPS, astrophysics, high energy physics, nuclear physics, so it's nothing, it's peanuts. The funding comes from our government. So our voice should be, we should give the feedback as much as possible and as strong as possible. Of course, we need then to align with the national strategies. Otherwise, they do not give us the funding. But we need to work on that. And putting together all the voices, we will make the single voice of a single facility in a South country stronger.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. And I think the question, Mikhail, brings me now to a second round of questions. I think we still have a couple of minutes. And I would like to start. You showed the example of fusion. I don't know how long it will take. I think still some decades. First of all, I wanted to say, if you're in a desert in Africa, so fusion power is very useful, but I would look on the sun and wait 8 minutes, and the fusion energy is set.
This technology we
already have, but it brings me by. I take this. I was on last week in on Tuesday in the German Parliament. So there are evenings organized. It was by the German Physical Society on the topic of fusion, and this is in the Parliament, and it's open for all the members of the Parliament to join discussions, to have a open discussion with scientists. And surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, there were mostly only members of the Parliament coming from one party in Germany, which is a bit very, very right-wing. And we had a lot of discussion about, I would say, opinions. Because what are scientific facts? What is an opinion? So you say something as a scientist, and then people say, that's your opinion. I have a different opinion, like is the Earth round or is it flat? Maybe we have different opinions on this table. And but what it's clearly from, I would say it's centered in Bavaria. But if we have it, and I think we increasingly face a crisis of trust in science. Results are often questioned, dismissed, or even manipulated to fit political agendas. Nevertheless, independence, rigorous debate, and open dialogue remain the very foundations of science. So we discuss, we are looking what are scientific facts, what are the results of measurements, what are theories, how it fit. It's really a discussion. And these principles of science are also its greatest strengths, enabling to influence political decision-making and counteract populist pressures. But we have to bring this on the table. Sometimes we are too complex in the debates today. And I also mentioned we have a new president at Helmholtz, Martin Keller, who was the CEO of NREL. And he just said, when he gave a presentation now, he just read what he's not allowed to say anymore, or which words he is not allowed to use. Example is clean energy, climate change, and more. So it's really difficult, but it shows a bit maybe the tension, the pressure. So the question now is a bit around to your specific impact. From your perspective, how can science and research infrastructures, what we do, because I think we want to bring the really best data and the facts and not the opinions. And how do you think we can really get this into society to make a strong point there? And I'm looking a bit who wants to start to. Any volunteer? Then I start this time with Agnes. There. Amal.
No, okay, if someone wants to start.
No, now you are the volunteer, you start.
Now I volunteered. Well, thank you very much for the question. I think the trust in science depends. It doesn't depend only on the quality of research, or the quality of science being performed, but also it depends on how inclusive and transparent the scientific process is. You mentioned the example of the flat Earth. Of course, this is a famous example, and you cannot say that you will have opinion about that. This is it must be. I mean, any scientific fact must be proved. I mean, So it's not about opinions, it's about transparency on how the science is being processed so people can understand and they can have the full picture. And sometimes science is not easy, we know that, and it's not easy to explain sometimes. It takes us also to the point of how scientists can improve their communication skills and how they can better explain what science is, how it is made, and what the value of it for people. I mean, we have I think the most prominent example is during the COVID, during the pandemic, where people were resisting vaccines and resisting masks. And why did we face this? We faced it because people don't know and they don't trust the scientists, and they don't trust the science, because there are no good methods of communicating the science to people. And as I said, one of the most important outcomes or anticipated outcomes of the International Decade of Sciences for Sustainable Development is to enhance the scientific literacy. And scientific literacy, by the way, is being measured really differently in different parts of the world. And while some people can say it's 10% in Africa or I don't know, 90% in Europe, they are really different measured in very different ways. But we need to also agree or work together on identifying or determining a definition for scientific literacy in order to make sure that people understand science, that science is transparent, or how it is made is being transparent, so people can appreciate science. And the recommendations of UNESCO recommendations on open science actually play a big role in that, because it takes us towards transparency and the reproducibility of the science and the collaboration as well. So it's really how we can help governments to build these kind of models that are transparent and accessible to all, so the knowledge can be accessible between the scientists but also to the general public. So so this is what I wanted to say about this trust in science. You need to be transparent in order to promote this trust in science. But I think you need actually to get over this point of working only among the scientists and having this small community of academics or researchers, and you need to reach to the general public and have this simple language. Not everyone has to be scientists, obviously, but everyone must have access to the knowledge that can allow them to understand the science and appreciate its value. And this is how can people can at some point to trust in science.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I think Agnieszka took the mic just to go on.
I think it's a discussion that we have in all sciences. So a couple of months ago, we had a very fascinating lecture of Patricia Nunz, she's the president of the European University Institute in Florence, and she said that basically we scientists have to leave our ivory towers and talk to the people. And I think it's extremely important that we actually make an effort to explain how what we do is important for the society in a way that is understandable by people. So for example, using this example of the bulb that can be lit in some decades, I don't know how long in the future in Africa, it is important to explain that what we do is not for the research papers that we write, but also to how to make people's lives better currently and in the future. What are the long-term visions that we have, which are very important. And it's not very easy, because we like our ivory towers, I think, in all of the disciplines and sciences. We are currently, our university and my research team, we are a part of a project that looks in the future resilience of societies. And in that project, we developed something that we call the Policy Lab. And this is actually a platform of dialogue between stakeholders, society representatives, and researchers. That we sort of inverted things around. So instead of saying what our research results are, we wanted to ask people, what would you like to look at? What are the aspects which are more important? How we can develop certain scenarios of the futures related to resilience that can be helpful to you as policymakers, as non-government organization representatives, as societies, social partners representatives. And I think it was a very valuable lesson for both sides. So these are the kinds of things we need to do, and we need to learn how to really write our messages, not only in the form of research papers, but also policy briefs, various kinds of short forms of interactions, videos. I will use the very bad word, TikToks, because that's what reaches some of the parts of the society. So we recently also had a discussion how we can actually go on the TikToks, and that was interesting, but also I think gains more and more attention that the way that people communicate these days is far away from what we do, but in order to reach them, we have to really understand and try to also follow those kinds of examples. And it's not very easy, and we come from a country that, for example, we weren't allowed to use the gender word for a long time, so we understand how difficult it is sometimes. But we managed to overcome and still do our gender studies in Poland for a long time, despite the fact that it wasn't actually politically acceptable.
Yeah, very interesting point in the discussion. Maybe with TikTok, I don't know if Leaps is on TikTok. Alba, are you on TikTok?
Not yet, but I think I fully agree that we have to use the new way of communication, because the problem. I think in our world of the research infrastructure in Leaps and in other similar facilities, we really do a lot of work to outreach, to speak to the society with our open days, schools, and it's very important we go to children. I mean, we need really to talk to them with their language, because the problem that is a new problem, if you want, is the fact that these fake news or strange ideas like the flatness of the earth, they really go into a lot of people because they are somehow attractive. So we have to go in that direction of speaking to those people who are young, who are the future runners of the world, and to speak with their language about science. There was a few weeks ago a group of physicists, and there was one of them asking, how do you fight against your teenager son who says the world, the earth is flat? What can you say? What can you do? And we need to talk. We need to develop these new skills of communication. We need to do that maybe within Leaps, how to work on that.
We need to put this even stronger on our to-do list. I think we are aware of it, but maybe we have to think about it, how to do it in the best way, how to do it together, how we can share their resources, approaches, because everything what we have to do on top is also taking those resources. I would just invite you also to join the discussion actively if you have any questions and remarks, because we will not have, I think we will use the remaining time somehow together. But Andrea, you wanted to step in. I just wanted to say, who wants to step in? You are always welcome.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to what you said. So I agree with you that, especially in Europe, I think that research infrastructures are reasonably well equipped already to speak to the general public. And for Sesame, this is a challenge, also because our audience is very different from the European audience. The average age in Jordan is 24 years. It's not 44 like in Europe. So you really need to find out new ways to speak to newer generations. There are millions of newer generations. So when you find somebody, half of the people that you are speaking of are very, very young. So it's. But again, also in this case, research infrastructures offer a model through their transparency, to their evaluation processes, to the way they follow an entire process from the beginning to the end, which is comforting and should be exported in a way. Yeah? So this is one of the strongest challenges of Sesame, and one of the strong points of Sesame also.
Eric, Frederick, sorry, Frederick, you wanted to also further.
Unless there is
discuss on
a
this
question.
topic. I'm looking a bit, but
Yeah.
people have to show up.
Yeah. So this is an issue which we was really lighted during the COVID crisis, and as you said, we did a lot of work on that, and one of our conclusions was that research infrastructure were actually strategic assets for countries and for governments in time of crisis, because they were able to provide very accurate and very solid, robust data to governments. And when compared to sometimes position taken by single scientists. And I think that's a very strong difference between research infrastructures and the rest of the academic community, is that you're not representing one view. You're aggregating the work of hundreds, thousands of scientists and extremely vast amount of data that you are processing. And the quality of the information that you can provide to governments and to the public, if needed, is extremely strong. And in that, it makes quite a difference. And for example, if you imagine that someone were saying suddenly stupid things on particle physics, and CERN was coming to say, look, this is ridiculous, the weight of the voice from CERN is such that it would be very hard for someone to say, well, what CERN is saying is stupid. So you have a potential reputation because of the quality of the work you do, and the fact that you're connected to hundreds, thousands of scientists, which is extremely high, extremely strong. And it can be heard by governments, at least as a reference. And that potentially is very strong. And when you develop ecosystems, even more, because you're pooling your resources. So that, I think, is an added value of research infrastructures regarding trust in science. Everything which was said regarding communication is one thing, but also you have a potential to be trustworthy sources, and you should be trustworthy sources. That's part of your mandate, I would say, in a way, and that, I think, in the context of increasing, mistrust, is very important.
I think that's also from key importance, but I would like to bring this question now a bit to our users, and I'm seeing here Cormac. So I will address it directly to you because I don't see another hand. But let's rephrase it a bit. Okay, and there's another one. I want to rephrase the question a bit. What we just discussed is that the research infrastructures, they're usually very strong. They're also, as you said, connected to thousands of scientists. And if I look on our users, certainly we rely with our infrastructures on the users, on the scientists using the facilities. What I see partly that the pressure is much bigger in the universities. If you look in the US or so, it's not so much in the research centers and at the research infrastructures, but in the universities. And certainly the universities, there are the scientific groups, this is our user base, and the people are coming, but if they are less trusted or receive less money, then we are also losing, let's say, our some of the key partners, why we are operating our user facilities. And this is why I wanted to ask Cormac a bit to comment on this topic. Trust.
Trust is a very complex back and forth between two people or between communities and perhaps also then politicians, and so it is, if I'm speaking for users, I mean, I'm usually speaking in the context of users and user communities trying to build trust with politicians, that that users should be able to access research infrastructures in order to perform scientific research, which using scientific methods can be trusted. But as you said, I mean, it increasingly is the case that politicians don't trust the outcomes of what is genuine scientific research trying to advance our knowledge, whether this is in the social sciences or whether this is in the physical sciences at our facilities. So, I mean, this is, I would say it is very problematic, and the discussion of how we can communicate why the outcomes of methodical scientific investigations can be trusted goes to the education of all of our children and the next generation, wherever we are. And it does make it much more difficult in the kind of siloed social media boxes that so many people are find themselves in, perhaps not through choice, but through kind of drifting through down, you might hear about people going down rabbit holes, on the internet, or something like that. But it's also, trust is in media is also tainted by badly trained artificial intelligence responses, in the sense that there are so many hallucinations that can come along even when Google reports on something. It was mentioned earlier in terms of user offices yesterday that even incorrect responses can be given potentially to users and so on. So I've drifted quite far away from where the thrust of your question was, but I suppose the dialogue that research infrastructures can have with both the community, the public, and the science funders and governments is really critical. So I mean, I might leave my comment on that, but maybe there's something that I've introduced which hasn't been discussed before.
I think, Mikael, you had a question, and then you. So I have to keep the order.
Yes, very briefly. When we are discussing the trust in science, there is one more thing that we are observing which is very dangerous, and this is the erosion in our system. And a good example are these predatory journals. Yes, so in fact there is a false, dressed like science. And here I think we still don't have a good methods, yes. And if we would compare to sport, when you are doing, this is like a doping, yes. And when we have anti-doping agencies and you don't respect the rules, then your team is excluded from the games, yes. And is it possible to have like a similar thing, yes? So if we as a research infrastructure, if we would decide, okay, if the country is not putting effort to stop the procedure of the predatory journals as far as they can influence this process, then we will stop access to our infrastructures. Yes, that can be that could be one of the, let's say, method similar to what we are doing in the sport area. This is not politics. This is like there are rules. If you respect the rules, you are open to play with us. But if you are not respecting the rules, you have to be excluded from the games. Your team or even your country. Yes, this is how it works in sport. But maybe it is too naive, this comparison. So this is just to...
Probably there could be a lot to discuss about it. I would take the second question. Maybe we then could also comment on both questions, but I see that we are in the last 5 minutes. So we have now to speed up.
It's not just a question, it's maybe more a comment and something that we will bring home from this super interesting panel. I think that is again, replied on based on trust, on the new generation, how to bring back the affection about science with children, with the new generation. I think one of the main assets of research infrastructure is people. So on one side, we as research infrastructure operators, I'm not a scientist, but of course I am a facilitator. We are international teams, and I consider that we could all be somehow ambassadors of science. And I mean, for example, the other day I went to the school of my son. It's an international school, and I presented very briefly what I do, because it was the job day, right? What is your parent doing? And so I brought some very little examples of the kind of science that can be done in a synchrotron. So we as research facility operators, as people of research infrastructures, but also users. And I think this is also a super asset we have. Our users are international, and I mean, as user office says, I mean, when we opened the operation, I really assisted in little miracles, because you could see some user groups that were coming maybe from Israel, from Palestine at the beginning, looking at each other in the guest house with some suspicious, like, oh my God, these are from Israel, these are from, but then on the second day they were talking to each other. On the third day they were having lunch together. They were going out, they were talking about not only science, but their children. So going back to Katerina was saying before, I mean, these are the seeds for the future. I mean, these people are probably continuing to be friends or to talk to each other. And this whole craziness that is hitting the world right now will be over, because it will be over. You know, we should start from that. I mean, these are the seeds for peace, for future, for trust in science. And I think really our asset, of course, is our instrument, but it's people, the users and the operators.
Thanks. I think this would already be a kind of a concluding remark. So, but I think it's a very, certainly a very optimistic one, and what we need to do. But I think also what Michael said is also very important, that how to deal if people don't go along the rules. So what we have, and I would like to close this session now with everyone in the panel, one sentence, and not a too long sentence with and, about what you have learned today and what you recommend to LEAPS, to us from your experience. And I will, I think we go around, and Amal has the closing suggestion, and Katerina the first one.
This is a very difficult question. I would say that working together is what, continue working together even more, and with what Greta just said, with the example that we give every day with our partners, with our users, with our family, with our everybody with whom we speak, with the government, showing that working together is the solution.
It works automatically. Next one takes a mic.
So first, I was really impressed by the very short summary I saw this morning on all the activities of LEAPS. I think it's gone a long way since we started to be interested to follow what you were doing. But coming back to the current discussion, I think you have a capacity to address some of the challenges that are emerging, and as LEAPS, you can do that much better than all your single infrastructure, alone. Don't be naive. Be proactive regarding the concerns raised by your funders and by your governments. And if you are proactive, then you will be able to respond to their concerns, and then you should be able to continue to work together, fairly freely.
Yes, I think for me it's really important to collaborate between different research disciplines and different research infrastructure in different disciplines, because there's a lot of common problems related to communication, to collaboration, resources sharing. So I think it's trust. It is really something that we need to do together, and we need to work together on that. And yeah, that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I go back home with a quite optimistic vision of the efforts that the community can give to science and to inclusiveness. So it has been 2 days for me quite interesting from this point of view, quite comforting, and so I hope that we will keep on going in this direction, and we will not forget that there is one continent still without a synchrotron, or still without research infrastructure of some importance. So that's it.
Yeah, thanks. And Amal, your recommendation to us.
So I would say that despite the major changes happening in the world, science still remains one of the few universal languages, and that can really unify us. And the research infrastructure and physical facilities can be spaces for solidarity and trust. So my recommendation will be really to share knowledge, share infrastructure, to keep this universal science alive, universal language of science alive. Thank you.
So with this, I would like to thank you all on the panel, all in the audience for the discussions, for the comments, and I would like to wrap up with an African proverb which fits to all what is said. So if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So let's take the next leaps together.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you a lot, Bernd, for driving that. Thank you to the panelists. On behalf of LIPS, I mean, we are really, really grateful you make these efforts to join us. I think the discussion was really excellent and showed really like collaboration can insist on the big things and the changes in the world. So with that, I think we are sadly saying coming to the end of our 2.5 actually day meeting. I think the yesterday evening was really lovely, and it will stay in our memories for a long time. There is one thing, because I'm certain you were enjoying the services here, the way the things were organized, you know, the quality of the food, the places chosen, and that was a lot of work by the entire team. But actually there is only one person, not only one, but it's a one person, major person that I would like to acknowledge. You see, this is the way you want to do the surprises, you know. And yeah, so Natalia, please come here. So maybe you haven't seen her a lot, but she was responsible for all the coffees, all the services, restaurant, all the arrangements. The bus yesterday was beautiful, right? With the lips on it. So that's all thanks to her. So Natalia, thank you so much. And yeah. So and we know people already are announcing we like to make events at Solaris, and more to come. But thank you so much.
So that was a pleasure to work with us. So maybe next time will be better. So see you in the next event.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we always say there is always room for improvements, even a little bit, but there is always. With that, I'm honestly, personally, a little bit exhausted already, but it was really great pleasure to have you here. We still have a lunch break, and with that, I conclude the LIPS plenary meeting 2025. It's now closed. Thank you so much.
Just an announcement for the CB members. We will